All right, so today I'm going to show you how I created a natural solar dye with Oregon grapefruit and roses. I know very well that I can take the easy route of boiling my material, but right now I'm attracted to the idea of using the sun for my heat and extraction of my dyes. This is still a pretty new concept to me, and I've tried it a handful of times, but I thought I could drag you along the process with me this time through. So, Phil and I went for a drive down the road from our house and dug up a little bit of Oregon grapefruit. We also found some roses with a nice rich pink and red tone on the roadside. So the first thing I do in prepping the Oregon grapefruit is to get rid of all of the leaves and berries attached, and then the moss and dirt around the root systems. I just don't want any other organic materials and whatnot in the dye that may affect the yellow color that I'm going for. As you can see, it's pretty easy to just rub the moss right off. A hose outside is perfectly sufficient to get off the dirt and clay. Next, I got out my pocket knife and started whittling and peeling the bark off of the grapefruit. It certainly takes some time, but once you get the hang of it, it gets easy. So this is what it looks like. You can already see the neon mustard kind of yellow. That will be the final dye. I then placed it in a jar and moved on to the roses. Through trial and error, I have found that grinding organic matter like flower petals will extract a much more rich color when it comes to solar dyeing. So I used a grinding stone that my lovely husband found in the creek. I then grabbed some petals, poured a bit of water on them to make the material easier to work with and malleable. It doesn't take too much to get them ground into a nice mushy pulp. Grinding small amounts of material and then just kind of adding water when you see fit is really helpful in this process. Then I took my rose mush, placed it into my jar, and repeated this until I was out of material. Once I was finished, I brought both jars inside. I was pretty excited at how pink my hands were once I was done grinding the roses, and it looks like it's going to be a promising outcome. I then added just enough scalding hot tap water to cover the material in each jar. Just a splash of vinegar was added to both the Oregon grapefruit and roses. I think that I may later remove the vinegar from my dye process. I know that it affects the acidity and pH level for the actual dyeing process itself of the cloth. But I don't actually know how effective it is on cotton fabric, which is primarily what I'm using right now. I just kind of gather things up from Goodwill, Value Village, things that I can scrounge from both of our closets, just to kind of figure out how to dye this stuff. Again, it's a learning process, and I'm dragging you along with me. So then I took them outside and let them start basking and processing in the sun. I made sure to check on both dyes every day and stir them with my trusty rusty utensil I found laying on the ground here at the nursery we live on. Here you can see my after-work fabulous fashion ensemble of knee-high socks, Birkenstocks, men's Hanes underwear, and a nasty shirt. I really tried to find a spot on the property that we live on that is going to get sun for almost all of the day. I just kind of want the maximum results that I can possibly find. And here's what they look like. I was content with the color of the roses after about 2.5 days of being in the sun. Usually once the petals are pretty pale, that's a good indication of them being fully processed. So I brought out a strainer we typically use for making jam. The tiny holes are incredibly helpful for whatever organic matter wants to cling onto the petals. I make sure to squeeze all that I can from the petals for whatever concentration of color they are still holding. And then back to the earth they go. I then pour my dye right back into the jar and it's ready to be used. The Oregon grape root sat in the sun for 5 days total, and I was pretty happy with the color at this point. I did the same straining process as I did with the rose petals and poured it back into the jar. Whoops, definitely spilled a little there, but that's all right. I've got enough dye there to be happy with. And this is the final dye I ended up with for the Oregon grape. All in all, I know this procedure will modify through time, and it isn't perfect by any means, but I'm pretty excited to see how they transfer to some cotton cloth. I will most definitely be creating a video for the actual dye process itself, so be sure to check back in. Thank you for watching, and have a lovely day.